Welcome to the Worldwide Doula podcast. I'm Barry, I'm a registered nurse and birth doula, and each week I'm joined by a new guest speaker to talk about all things pregnancy, birth, babies, and parenthood. So it's time to sit back and relax as we get into some juicy topics. Welcome back to the Worldwide Doula podcast. Today I'm here with Ashley. She's a postpartum doula, yoga instructor, and lactation support person. She's from Ottawa in Canada, but she's currently living in Bali, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me. Welcome to the podcast, Ashley. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I've been loving your content, so I'm excited to do some stuff with you.
Well, yeah, me too. Have you listened to some of the other episodes?
Yeah. I was just, as we got acquainted with each other, I was just doing a little research on you, and I love what you have to say, and I love that we were able to connect.
Awesome. Today we are going to be talking about everything you need to know to prepare for postpartum, from breastfeeding to body changes and recovery. And there's going to be some really good stuff in this episode. So make sure you stay tuned right until the end because you don't want to miss anything. So setting the scene, you've welcomed your little one into the world and you've entered the postpartum period. Ashley, what are some changes that a woman's body goes through in the first couple of weeks of postpartum?
Yeah, so there are some major things, of course. You're going to be going from, growing your little one inside of you to now looking at your body like, wow, I made that. And it's kind of shifting back to where it was pre-pregnancy. So you'll notice your uterus, it will still be quite large immediately after birth, but it'll slowly start getting back to your pre-pregnancy size. Your organs will be shifting back into place. And one major thing I want to touch on is just the hormonal changes you'll experience. Because when you're in pregnancy, you're experiencing almost like this high, you're feeling good usually, and you're going to go from that to experiencing a very significant drop in hormones. So just getting acquainted with navigating that. Usually it comes in the form of, the baby blues, and just knowing that things will change, but it is to help support your new role of nourishing your baby. So hormones for breastfeeding, you'll notice body changes with that. You'll notice that you might be even hungrier than you were in your third trimester. So those are some key factors outside of the other healing side of things postpartum.
You touched on baby blues. Can you just tell me what the difference is between baby blues and postpartum depression?
Yeah, absolutely. So baby blues is, again, usually due to the hormonal drop that you'll experience, but it's a lot like less severe than postpartum depression. You might experience the baby blues for the first few days or first couple of weeks after birth. You'll be a little bit irritable, a little bit anxious, but you'll know the difference because of how long it lasts. If it's lasting, for months, a year, like those are definitely key indicators that it might be something more severe, and you'll definitely want to work with a specialist. Postpartum depression is typically those bigger emotions, so it's a lot more severe sadness, severe, just like that something's off. And that's why I really do encourage mothers to work with a postpartum specialist or someone who knows them very well and can tell when something's off, just so that they don't have to go through it alone.
I think there's not enough information out there about what the difference between postpartum depression and baby blues is. I actually wrote an article about it because I've really struggled to find information about it and what the difference is. So yeah, put really beautifully, definitely. But baby blues, I've heard that people say that it's like worrying because there's such a big worry about, oh my gosh, I don't want to fall into postpartum depression. I read the statistic the other day that 80% of women experience baby blues after they've given birth. And it's completely normal. It's completely normal to feel these feelings of almost depression, but it's also like you feel like you can't exactly explain what's going on. And often the partners say like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And they just say, I don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
So obviously it's important to know these things and to know the difference. And if you are worried that it might be more than just baby blues, go and see someone. It doesn't hurt to go and see someone and catch it early, just in case. So what are some misconceptions around postpartum recovery that you've heard out there?
I would say one of the biggest ones is after that first, 6 week postpartum check in that you'll just automatically be fine. Your body will be
Mm.
back to normal. You'll feel at 100% fully rejuvenated. And honestly, that's just a bit of a benchmark. People heal at different points. And from my experience, I've seen that the more mothers take time to rest immediately after birth, they take time to really just take it slow, be kind of nurtured by their little intimate bubble community. They are able to recover so much quicker than just snapping back into things and, trying to move your body as much as possible because you want to lose the baby weight, whatever it is. I would say that is a really big misconception, and it's all right to take it easy if you're
Yeah.
at that time. But yeah, I'd say major one for sure.
Yeah. One that I've heard is that a lot of women, they're so focused on planning the birth
Mhm.
and what's going to happen in my birth. And then you get to the postpartum period and you don't have a plan. You don't have support, you haven't sorted out. Like if you don't have your family close by, then you don't just have someone immediately there who can make food for you, who can, you know, hold the baby when you go and have a shower. The most important things that you realize you take for granted before you have a baby, and then you realize, oh, I need some help. So yeah, planning, and then also the fact that you're just going to have, you're going to feel this connection with your baby. Like some women don't have that. Some
Yeah.
women aren't super, they don't have the motherly instincts, and maybe they've had their baby and they thinking to themselves, why don't I feel this way? Like I'm supposed to be feeling this way, X, Y, and Z towards my baby, but I just don't feel that way.
100% agree. And I know
Mm.
that just like what you said about a lot of mothers focusing on planning the birth part, but not being prepared for the postpartum part, it takes so much time and energy away from building that bonding and connection because you're just, so focused on planning the stuff that should have been planned beforehand. And it's just so overwhelming. So it just
Mm.
kind of piles on to the stress that, you feel like you're doing something wrong and then you feel like you're not connecting as much as you should be. And it's just like a spiral at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the same goes for the father or the partner.
Mhm.
Sometimes, yeah, you haven't grown this baby in your womb for 9 months,
Yeah.
but you definitely still have a special connection with the baby. And
Yeah,
it might not come straight away. It might take a little while. And, everyone's process is different.
absolutely.
Let's talk a bit about breastfeeding because it can be so challenging for a lot of women. You might have one baby and breastfeeding can be really simple and straightforward. And then the next baby, you have lots of trouble. And there's so many different things that can be happening with your baby. You can have tongue tie. What advice would you give to first time mums who are wanting to breastfeed?
Well, something that I would say is a common thing that lactation counselors, I guess, are always taught is that although breastfeeding is natural, it's not always instinctual. So it's okay to not know everything like immediately. Like a lot of mothers tend to have unrealistic expectations of how their breastfeeding journey will go. And so I'd say that the best thing to do to just kind of navigate that is one, taking the time to receive thorough education before you give birth, just so that it's fresh. Maybe that might seem little to you, but in the grand scheme of things, builds up a bigger issue. You'll know from the get go, you'll know the common challenges so that you can help navigate that. And to not be afraid to ask for support so that you don't end up, missing out on a really positive breastfeeding experience due to not being able to figure out how to get a comfortable latch or being in pain and continuing to feed your baby, even though it's not something that's comfortable. So just, yeah, finding the support that you need in order to understand and in order to navigate those challenges.
Mm. Yeah. What are some things that the partner can do to help support the mum to breastfeed?
Yeah. So there are definitely a bunch of things because I know that a lot of partners do tend to struggle around that time, like you said, just feeling as connected to both mom and baby because, the baby is almost completely reliant on the mom for
Mm.
nourishment, for connection, for regulating every part of their body. And so when it comes to partners, one thing that they can very much help with is also being educated about breastfeeding challenges. There's a study that I was learning about back when I was doing my lactation counseling training, and it was taking place in Italy and China. And they were talking about the differences in breastfeeding success for families who both mother and father did led breastfeeding classes versus parents who just kind of, let the mother figure that out. And the fathers felt more involved. They felt happier. They felt just like more bonded to their family, and the breastfeeding success rates went up. So I feel like those are important things to know, as a dad, being like, wow, just by me getting involved, me understanding the challenges and being able to help support my partner is already helping our baby become more nourished, and my partner feeling better because she's able to, nourish her baby and like all these things. So
yeah, exactly. That's a great statistic. It definitely does make a huge difference to have that support. Even if you're just doing it yourself, you can have somebody like your sister, your neighbor, your friend come and stay with you and support you through that, because it's not easy. Like breastfeeding is hard.
Yeah.
And I saw this thing on Instagram that you burn like a huge amount of calories when you're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And what you said before, you can expect to be eating a lot when you're breastfeeding. You definitely need all that fuel. But if women need help with breastfeeding, where can they find the help?
So there's a few different things. I would say that if you were starting off, already in postpartum, you're kind of scrambling for resources. I know that the program that I did my lactation counseling through, I guess the organization would kind of be based through the states, but they just have a list of resources for like every single kind of area that you would expect to find, breastfeeding support. They have online modules, so that's really cool. It's called Healthy Children's Project. And otherwise, working with a postpartum doula, a lot of them do have lactation counseling experience. Some of them don't. So if they don't, you can go specifically towards, having a lactation consultant or a counselor. Ultimately, it is tricky if you go the medical route, because I don't know how experienced the doctors in your area are or how much they would push for, breastfeeding. It is different depending on your area. Some cities, states, countries have higher breastfeeding rates because, it all comes down to the knowledge that these specialists have. But yeah, there are a plethora of resources out there. It's just a matter of sifting through what exactly your issue is, and then just, going from there. But as a lactation counselor, I'm always happy to guide people in the right direction if they want someone in person versus just virtual support. So yeah.
Yeah, doulas can be a great support, especially in that area.
Exactly.
Sleep deprivation can be tough for both mum and dad. Do you have any strategies that can help new parents cope with the lack of sleep?
Yeah. So I have a couple of things. I find that living in Asia, it's been very interesting seeing the differences of how families sleep with their babies versus how we do in the West. And one thing that is interesting is the rates of like co-sleeping and room sharing in Asia. And I know that many families choose to do that because just having their baby closer has been a lot of a time saver, not having to get up and go to another room, feed your baby, nurse them, and comfort them back to sleep. So I do know that that's something that does help a lot of families and done safely. Another thing is building a plan beforehand with your partner on things that you won't be able to handle. I feel like there are a lot of housekeeping things that just need to be kind of pushed to the side in order to prioritize your baby and to prioritize rest. So just having a list of people who might be able to support in helping, maybe, prep a meal so that you can kind of take some time away from doing that level of labor and focusing on resting together. So just having, little plans here and there to help mitigate all the other life stuff so that you can focus on navigating your new baby and your relationship.
Yeah, I think it's so important to get rest. Don't expect that you're going to sleep through the night.
No.
Because that's not realistic. I mean, some babies are great. They do sleep, but others are hard. I did a episode recently with an osteopath. Something she said was osteopathic treatments for your newborn can have a lot of health benefits, a lot of benefits and long-term benefits as well. But one of the main benefits is they're more consolable. You'll be able to stop them crying much easier, and they sleep a lot better. So if you are really having trouble getting your baby to sleep, maybe going to an osteopath is the answer. I don't know what they do. They have these magic hands.
Magic hands, exactly. I've heard that so much lately. A lot of newborn chiropractors now have been popping up on my feed, and it's been amazing seeing mothers express the results that they've experienced. So I really do want to look more into that because it sounds phenomenal what they're able to accomplish in 1, 2 sessions.
Yes. Yeah, they really are amazing. But also, there's a type of doula that a lot of mums don't know about, and that is a nighttime doula. Is that
Yeah,
what they're
like
called?
definitely. I'm in a bunch of postpartum doula groups, and something that is common is because it's not quite a night nurse, but
Mm.
it's like a night postpartum doula. So they're made to kind of just make life a whole lot easier for the mom and dad while they're, navigating their newborn phase. And I've heard mothers rave about it. I've met some even down here in Bali being like, man, I am so grateful to have invested in that for the first couple of weeks because we were just exhausted. And she just kind of went and did laundry for them in the night, would do the cleaning for them in the night, and just help them wake up feeling refreshed and like, wow, I have a clear space, I have a clear mind, I feel good. And it's nice not having someone always almost invading your personal space in the day because obviously it's such an intimate and vulnerable time. So yeah, a lot of people really like having night doulas.
Yeah, I actually was so surprised when I found out about them. And I'm thinking, when I have my baby, I'm getting a nighttime doula. And
Ooh,
I mean, you can still breastfeed when you have a nighttime doula. They just
right.
come and they wake you up gently, and then they give you the baby. They give you the time to breastfeed, and then they take the baby back to bed. And that's one of the best things about co-sleeping. The baby's right there. You don't have to wake up as much. So you do get a lot more sleep, I think.
Exactly. And better quality sleep because it's not, you don't have to restart everything.
What are some tips for physical recovery after childbirth?
Yeah, after you've experienced extreme rest, your body's feeling good. You know that as you're walking, you're not feeling like, oh, like strain, and
Mm.
you're slowly getting back into things. I would say beginning with core strengthening exercises is going to be really important. I know that many mothers tend to struggle with diastasis recti, and so that's when the abdominal muscles separate. And so there are a few different things that you can do to help support that. I think a few of them are going to be in the Pilates yoga realm. So that's just learning how to get the strength back without putting too much strain in areas it's not meant to be. And I think a lot of the times too, it's going to be a lot of joint recovery because during pregnancy, your joints are a lot more flexible because you need to be able to make room for your baby to come out. And so a lot of mothers tend to feel almost off balance because one, they don't have the baby that's been a lot of weight in the front of their body, and then their ligaments learning to get back to the less flexible stage. So it's going to be a lot of stabling exercises as well. So that's why I think that both gentle Pilates and yoga are going to be very helpful things, and not pushing your body to be more flexible than it needs to be so that you can get back to normal.
What about with like episiotomies or C-sections, that
Yeah.
kind of thing? Like, because I'm assuming that we're talking natural birth, but
Yeah.
what if somebody doesn't have a natural birth? What if somebody has a C-section or they have slight trauma down there?
There are a good few things that I know of. One of them is going to be almost like a sitz bath. And so, what a sitz bath is typically, well, it depends, but a lot of the times it's Epsom salts inside a little bath, and you're going to sit in it. And that'll help soothe the episiotomy part, the little tear. And that tends to help mothers a lot. It tends to help with cleaning as well, soothe the muscles down there. And I think that having a lot of herbal healing baths, there are a few good mixes that you can have, plantain leaf, like different things, lavender, that helps not only like clean the womb, but also soothe the muscles, help heal the tissue. Many mothers tend to swear by having castor oil packs. And what it is basically you'll have flannel and you'll soak it in castor oil and also some healing herbs if you want to. And along the C-section scar is where they'll wrap it, and then they'll wrap it around with saran wrap, and that'll help soften the scar tissue so that you run into less issues the next time you give birth or just in general. So those are a couple of things I know tend to really help mothers. I talk a good bit about Bengkung belly binding, and that tends to be something that's very supportive for not only your core, but having your organs kind of get back to the place that they're meant to be. Um, with avoiding prolapse is going to be a lot of the rest and not straining your body and overexerting yourself before you're meant to be moving around too much. But those are a good few things that you can get started with early on to make sure that you're supporting your physical recovery.
How does postpartum yoga benefit new mothers?
I would say the mindset aspect. Going through pregnancy, I think that yoga is great for allowing for expansion and openness and, allowing your body to be open to the different possibilities and outcomes of your birth. But once you give birth, you have gone into this extremely vulnerable, open position. And what you want to focus on is almost like closing and not becoming as vulnerable anymore and just kind of retracting into your intimate bubble. So it's going to help to do a lot more grounding exercises. So more grounding meditations when you're going through your yoga practice will be helpful for soothing any anxiety, for allowing yourself to just be more not quite introspective, but more kind of in your own space, And so, yeah, definitely some mindset yoga work, mindset meditation stuff.
And mindset meditation can also help with having a positive mindset and healthy mind, because that's one of the really big things. After you give birth to your baby, the chances of you falling into a postpartum depression is really scary. So making sure that you have a healthy mind can definitely, help you out there.
Absolutely.
Having the right support system in place makes a huge difference. And I've pretty much touched on this in every single episode because it's just so important. But what kind of support should new mothers seek out? And is that something that they should maybe include in their birth plan? Because it's not just a plan for the birth, it's a plan for 6 weeks postpartum, because that's all part of it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something I stress the importance of in my program, because the support that you have around you in pregnancy, you want to feel so confident in that when you give birth, you don't even think twice about, calling on someone because they will be there. So a few ways that I know that helps support the mothers I support is having something called a mother's blessing. And what that is, it's a little bit different to a baby shower, because the gifts that the women that will attend this mother's blessing will bring are a lot more spiritual and emotionally supportive. So they'll usually be, like a poem for you, or a letter of words of wisdom, and little things that will really help encourage and inspire you. And having that little special blessing over you is meant to help carry you through, make a plan, have the women who are involved kind of sign up for little tasks and little ways that they can help support you. Whether it's like, I'm available for you if you just need a text, or you just want to share your birth story to me, I'm just going to listen. And then you can have another mom kind of organizing a meal train for you. And then another mom-in-law or sister-in-law, doing little things for you to help you know that you don't need to feel isolated because they're there. So I love pregnancy mother's blessing because it'll help you feel confident moving through the different stages.
That sounds so beautiful. I've actually seen some of those on Instagram. I feel like it's very popular in Bali. I haven't really heard much about it in Australia when I lived in Australia, but it's super popular in Bali. And it's so nice because, it's nice to buy stuff for the baby for a baby shower so that you're prepared for when the baby arrives, you have baby clothes or whatever. But one of the best ways that you could support a mum is through the support network, not necessarily giving something, giving your time, and being that person who a mum can rely on is huge. Yes. And yes, she has her immediate support network, like her partner, and then maybe her family or her neighbor. But then being that extra person who comes and cooks you a meal or does some laundry, it's the non-glamorous tasks that they really need, because at the end of the day, it really makes a huge difference. There's so much great information that we touched upon. I hope it's made listeners more confident and prepared for their postpartum journeys. Remember, everyone's postpartum journey and experience is different. Your feelings are valid. And if you need something, speak up, because your support network is there for a reason. And this is your time to be selfish. Thank you, Ashley, for coming on. It's been really great.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Everyone, you can find Ashley at Ashley Neo Doula on Instagram. And if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you give us a follow and rate the show. And if you know someone who you think needs to hear this episode, give it a share so that we can spread the word and educate more mamas and women worldwide. And we'll see you next Monday for another juicy episode. For more information on pregnancy, birth, and parenthood, head over to my website or Instagram at blissfulbirth.co. And just a little reminder, the information contained in this podcast is here to educate and empower and does not replace the advice of your own healthcare provider.